Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. I never imagined I'd find myself in such a bewildering situation. As I sat on the edge of our bed, lost in thought, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. Elena, my fiancée, was humming a tune in the other room, oblivious to the storm brewing in my mind. We had been together for 5 years, a journey that began when our paths crossed at work. She was in her early 30s, and I was in my early 40s, an age difference that never mattered to us. Our relationship was like a well-oiled machine, efficient, reliable, almost predictable. But that evening, something felt different. The hum of the city outside our window seemed more distant, and the tick of the clock in our living room more pronounced. "Alex, you seem distant today. Is everything okay?" Elena's voice broke through my reverie as she entered the room, her brow creased with concern. I forced a smile, not wanting to burden her with my unfounded worries. "I'm fine, just tired from work," I replied, hoping my voice sounded more convincing than I felt. Elena sat down beside me, her hand finding mine. "We've been planning our wedding for this summer," she said softly, a hint of excitement in her voice. "It's going to be perfect, just like us." I nodded, but my heart wasn't in it. I remembered how our love had blossomed from a solid, respectful friendship into something more profound. We were happy, genuinely so, or so I thought. Our connection was strong, our bed life satisfying. We shared common interests, respected each other, and communicated openly. There was no reason for me to doubt our relationship, yet doubt I did. Later that evening, as we sat together on the couch, Elena's phone buzzed incessantly. She glanced at it, typing a quick response before turning her attention back to me. "Just some work stuff," she said, noticing my gaze. "Seems like you're always on your phone these days," I remarked, trying to keep my tone light. Elena laughed, a sound that usually comforted me. "You know how it is. The closer we get to the wedding, the more there is to plan." I wanted to believe her, to push aside the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. But the more I tried, the more it gnawed at me. It was like a small crack in a dam, threatening to widen and let the floodwaters through. The next day, as I left for work, I turned to see Elena waving from the doorway, her smile as bright as the morning sun. But the image that stayed with me as I walked away was of her phone, always within reach, always demanding her attention. As the days passed, my unease grew. I found myself watching Elena, looking for signs that I wasn't the only one feeling the shift in our relationship. She seemed the same, loving, attentive, happy. But was she really? Or was I just seeing what I wanted to see? One evening, as we prepared dinner together, I decided to broach the subject. "Elena, have we changed?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She turned to me, a puzzled look on her face. "Changed? What do you mean?" "I don't know," I admitted, struggling to put my feelings into words. "I just feel like there's something different between us." Elena put down the knife she was holding and stepped closer. "Alex, we're about to start a new chapter of our lives. It's natural to feel a bit anxious. But I promise you, my feelings for you haven't changed. I love you, now more than ever." Her words should have reassured me, but they only deepened my confusion. I loved her too, more than anything. But love wasn't the issue here. It was trust, a foundation that seemed to be cracking under the weight of my doubts. As I lay in bed that night, Elena asleep beside me, I realized that the journey ahead might be more challenging than I had ever imagined. And as the city outside our window slept, I lay awake, wondering what the future held for us. The September air was crisp, heralding the beginning of autumn as I prepped for the dinner party we planned. It was Elena's idea, a small gathering to celebrate our impending nuptials with a few close friends. As evening approached, the house buzzed with activity. Elena was in her element, orchestrating every detail with an almost theatrical flair. "Alex, can you please check if we have enough ice in the freezer?" Elena called out from the kitchen, her voice mingling with the clatter of dishes. "On it," I replied, heading towards the kitchen. The freezer was well stocked, a testament to Elena's meticulous planning. Our guests began to arrive, filling the house with laughter and conversation. Elena greeted each one with her characteristic warmth, the perfect hostess. There was Lucy and her husband, Mike, whom I had always found a bit too slick for my liking, and 2 other couples from our circle of friends. Elena, with her usual attention to detail, had assigned seating at the dinner table. "Alex, you're at the head of the table, and I'll sit here," she said, pointing to the seat between Lucy and Mike. I didn't think much of it at the time. The evening progressed with animated discussions and a parade of Elena's carefully curated dishes. I moved between the dining area and the kitchen, playing my part in the choreographed evening. It was during one of these transitions, carrying a tray of Elena's famous lasagna to the table, that I caught a glimpse of something that sent a jolt through me. Elena and Mike seemed too close. Their heads were inclined towards each other, sharing a laugh. Maybe it was innocent, but something about it made me pause. I shook off the feeling, attributing it to my recent sense of unease. "Everything looks amazing, Elena," I complimented, setting the tray down and trying to focus on the positive atmosphere. "Thank you, love," she smiled, her eyes sparkling. "I'm so glad everyone's enjoying themselves." As the night wore on, the wine flowed, and the conversations grew louder and more animated. I was in the midst of a debate about the latest sports game when I felt the need to check on Elena. Turning my gaze towards her, I witnessed a moment that froze me in my tracks. There it was, under the soft glow of the dining table light, Elena and Mike's hands, subtly touching under the table. My heart pounded in my chest, my mind racing with questions. Was I seeing things? Was this just an accidental brush of hands? I rubbed my eyes, hoping it was just a trick of the light. But when I looked again, their hands were apart, as if nothing had happened. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. My mind was elsewhere, trapped in a whirlwind of doubt and confusion. After the guests had left, Elena and I tidied up in silence. The usual post-party chatter between us was absent. I was lost in thought, replaying that brief moment over and over in my mind. "Alex, you've been quiet. Are you sure you're okay?" Elena finally broke the silence, her voice laced with concern. "Yeah, just tired, I guess," I lied, forcing a smile. As we retired to bed, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The image of Elena and Mike's hands haunted me. I wanted to believe it was nothing, a figment of my imagination fueled by my recent doubts. But deep down, I knew something had shifted in our relationship, something I couldn't ignore. I closed my eyes, hoping sleep would bring some clarity. But all I found was a restless night filled with unease and unanswered questions. The dinner party revelation had opened a door to suspicions I couldn't close, a door that led to a path I was hesitant to walk down. The days following the dinner party were like walking through a dense fog of uncertainty. The image of Elena and Mike's hands, that brief touch under the table, replayed in my mind endlessly. Each time it did, a new wave of doubts crashed over me. Elena seemed unaware of the storm brewing within me. She was her usual self, cheerful, busy with wedding plans, and always glued to her phone. That phone, it had become a constant companion by her side, a silent witness to my growing unease. One evening, as we sat in our living room, each engrossed in our devices, I noticed how Elena angled her phone away from me. It was a small, almost insignificant gesture, but in the context of my suspicions, it felt like a glaring red flag. "Who are you texting?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just chatting with Lucy about some wedding stuff," Elena replied without looking up. The rest of the evening, I watched her. The way her fingers flew over the screen, the small smiles that danced on her lips as she read the responses. It was all so ordinary, yet it felt so alien to me now. The following weekend, we decided to take a walk in the park, a chance to get some fresh air and clear our minds. As we strolled through the winding paths, surrounded by the golden hues of autumn, I felt a momentary sense of peace. But it was short-lived. Elena's phone buzzed. She pulled it out and glanced at the screen, her expression changing ever so slightly. "I need to take this," she said, stepping away. I watched her as she talked, her voice a soft murmur carried away by the wind. When she returned, her smile was forced. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yes, just some last-minute changes to the wedding menu," she said, but her eyes avoided mine. That night, as I lay in bed next to Elena, her steady breathing told me she was asleep. But sleep eluded me. The seeds of doubt had taken root in my mind, growing and twisting into gnarled branches of suspicion. The next day, I decided to confront my fears. "Elena, I need to talk to you about something," I began, my voice heavy with the weight of my thoughts. She looked up, her eyes reflecting a mix of surprise and concern. "What is it, Alex?" "It's about us," I said, pausing to gather my courage. "I've been feeling like there's something off between us. Like you're hiding something from me." Elena's expression shifted from concern to confusion. "Hiding something? Alex, I don't understand. Why would you think that?" I hesitated, unsure of how to articulate the turmoil inside me. "I don't know, Elena. It's just a feeling. The way you've been with your phone, how you seemed so close to Mike at the party. It's probably nothing, but it's been bothering me." Elena's face softened, and she reached for my hand. "Alex, You're the only one for me. There's nothing going on with Mike, I promise. And my phone, it's just wedding stuff. You know how it is. I wanted to believe her, to let go of the nagging doubts that plagued me. But a part of me couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to it. The days that followed were a blur of routine and forced normalcy. Elena continued with her wedding preparations, her phone a constant presence. And I continued to watch, to wonder, to doubt. Each ring, each buzz of that phone sent a pang of suspicion through me. I found myself questioning everything, our conversations, our laughter, our moments of silence. Had we changed? Or had I simply failed to see what was always there? As autumn deepened and the trees shed their leaves, so too did my heart shed its layers of trust and certainty. Doubts and suspicions had taken root, growing in the shadows of my mind, casting a pall over the life we had built together. And as I grappled with these thoughts, a part of me knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with questions and uncertainties. But the one question that loomed largest was whether our love could weather the storm of doubts that had come to haunt me. November had rolled in with its cold embrace, bringing with it a chill that seemed to seep into my very bones. The days were shorter, the nights longer, and in that extended darkness, my doubts and suspicions about Elena grew like shadows on a wall. One chilly evening, as we sat in our living room, Elena on the love seat with her ever-present phone, and I in my armchair pretending to read, I decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. "Elena," I began, my voice barely above the crackling of the fire, "we need to talk about us." She looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. "What about us, Alex?" "I can't shake off this feeling that something's changed," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Ever since the dinner party, I feel like there's a distance between us. And your phone, it's like it's a part of you now." Elena's face clouded over. "Alex, I've told you, it's just wedding stuff. Planning a wedding isn't easy, you know. But it's more than that," I persisted, feeling my heart rate pick up. "It's like you're not here, even when you're right beside me." Elena set her phone down and turned to face me. "Alex, you're imagining things. I love you, and nothing's changed that. You're the only one for me." Her words should have comforted me, but they felt hollow. I needed more than words. I needed the truth, whatever that might be. The next few days were a tense dance of avoidance and forced normality. We went about our daily routines, but the air between us was thick with unspoken words and unaddressed feelings. It all came to a head one evening when I returned home from work to find Elena on the phone, laughing and chatting animatedly. As I entered, she abruptly ended the call, her face flushing slightly. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just Lucy," she replied quickly, too quickly. I nodded, not sure whether to believe her or not. "Elena, we need to be honest with each other. Is there something going on that I should know about?" Elena's eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of guilt flash across her face. "Alex, why are you doing this? Why can't you trust me?" "It's not about trust," I said, though I wasn't even sure if that was true anymore. "It's about feeling connected, and lately, I don't feel that connection." Elena stood up, her hands clenched at her sides. "I don't know what you want me to say, Alex. I'm planning our wedding, trying to make everything perfect, and all you can do is doubt me." Her words stung, and I felt a surge of frustration. "It's not about the wedding, Elena. It's about us. I feel like I'm losing you, and I don't know why." There was a long silence, heavy and suffocating. Elena looked at me, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Alex, I'm here. I'm right here. But if you keep pushing me away with your doubts and accusations, I don't know how long I can hold on." Her words hit me like a physical blow, and for a moment, I was speechless. The realization that I might be pushing her away was a bitter pill to swallow. We went to bed that night in silence, each lost in our thoughts. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if my suspicions were unfounded, if I was the architect of my own unhappiness. As I lay there, the sound of Elena's breathing steady and rhythmic beside me, I knew one thing for sure: the unraveling of our relationship had begun, and I didn't know how to stop it. As December's icy grip took hold, the once warm and comforting walls of our home felt cold and distant. The festive cheer that should have filled the air was replaced by a thick, suffocating tension. My suspicions had grown into a monstrous entity, lurking in every corner, tainting every moment Elena and I shared. The breaking point came unexpectedly on a frosty Saturday morning. The world outside was blanketed in snow, a pristine white that belied the turmoil brewing inside me. Elena was in the kitchen, humming a tune while making breakfast. The sound, which once brought me joy, now grated on my nerves. I entered the kitchen, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. "Elena, we need to talk," I blurted out, unable to contain the storm within any longer. She turned off the stove and faced me, her expression one of concern. "What's wrong, Alex?" I took a deep breath, the words I had rehearsed so many times suddenly elusive. "It's about us, about your phone, about Mike. I can't shake this feeling that you're hiding something from me." Elena's face fell, her eyes widening in shock. "Not this again, Alex. I thought we were past this. I saw how you were with him at the party, and ever since then, things have fell off," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain calm. Elena sighed, a weary, defeated sound. "Alex, there's nothing going on between Mike and me. You have to believe me. But I saw you too, the way you looked at each other, the way you touched hands," I countered, my heart pounding in my chest. Elena's expression hardened. "So, what are you saying, Alex? That I'm cheating on you?" The question hung in the air, heavy and ominous. "I don't know what to think anymore, Elena. All I know is that something doesn't feel right." There was a long, painful silence as we stared at each other, the chasm between us growing wider with each passing second. Then, with a shaking voice, Elena spoke. "Alex, if you can't trust me, if you're going to accuse me of something so horrible, then maybe we need to rethink this whole thing." Her words were like a dagger to my heart. "Is that what you want? To end this?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know, Alex. I don't know what I want anymore." The air was thick with unsaid words and unshed tears. I felt a profound sense of loss, as if the ground had been pulled from under my feet. "I love you, Elena," I said, the words coming out in a whisper. "But I can't live with this doubt, this suspicion." Elena wiped her eyes, her voice barely audible. "I love you too, Alex, but love isn't enough when there's no trust." We stood there, in the heart of our home, surrounded by the ghosts of happier times. The smell of the breakfast Elena had been cooking lingered in the air, a cruel reminder of the normalcy we had lost. As I walked out of the kitchen, my heart heavy with a pain I had never known, I realized that our relationship was unraveling at the seams. The confrontation had brought everything to the surface, laying bare the heartbreak that had been festering in the shadows. I didn't know what the future held for Elena and me. All I knew was that the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty and pain. The life we had built together was crumbling, and I was powerless to stop it. The days following our confrontation were a blur, each moment tinged with a surreal sense of loss. The apartment, once a haven of love and warmth, now felt like a mausoleum of our broken dreams. The air was thick with the ghost of our past happiness, every corner a reminder of what we had lost. I wandered through the days and days, each task a Herculean effort. Elena and I moved around each other like two planets in a decaying orbit, our interactions brief and stilted. One evening, as I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the wall, Elena walked in. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face etched with sorrow. "Alex, we need to talk," she said, her voice a whisper. I looked up, my heart heavy. "Yes, we do." Elena took a deep breath, her hands trembling. I think it's time for us to part ways." The words hung in the air, stark and irrevocable. "Is that what you want?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "It's not about what I want," she replied, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It's about what's best for us. We can't go on like this, living in a constant state of suspicion and unhappiness." I knew she was right, yet the acknowledgement of it tore through me like a blade. "I never wanted this, Elena. I never wanted to lose you." Elena sat down beside me, her hand reaching for mine. "I know, Alex. I know. And I never wanted to hurt you. But sometimes, love isn't enough. Sometimes, the kindest thing we can do is let go." We sat there, hand in hand, the weight of our decision pressing down on us. "Where will you go?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I'll stay with Lucy for a while," she said, wiping her eyes. "I need some time to figure things out." "And the wedding?" The word felt like ash in my mouth. Elena shook her head. "There won't be a wedding, Alex. Not now." The finality of her words was a cold slap of reality. Our future, once so bright and full of promise, had dimmed into nothingness. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity as Elena packed her belongings and moved out. Each item she took was another piece of our shared life, gone forever. The day she left, the apartment felt empty, a hollow shell of what once was. I stood at the window, watching as she drove away, a part of me leaving with her. In the silence that followed, I realized that the journey of moving on was just beginning. It was a path I had to walk alone, a path fraught with memories and what-ifs. As I sat there, the sun setting outside, casting long shadows across the room, I knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous. But it was a road I had to travel to find peace, to find myself. Elena was gone, our love a chapter closed. But life went on, and so must I. With a heavy heart, I stood up, the first step of moving on taken in a quiet, empty room.